In today's show, I'm looking at the top 20 players in fantasy basketball over the last 2 weeks. Michael Bolton.
Thanks, Josh. It's Michael Bolton here, and it's time for another episode of the Locked On Fantasy Basketball Podcast. Let's get to it.
Let's get to it, indeed.
You are Locked On Fantasy Basketball, your daily fantasy basketball podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network.
Hello and welcome to the Locked On Fantasy Basketball Podcast, brought to you by Basketball Monster. My name is Josh Lloyd and I am the lead fantasy analyst at basketballmonster.com and at Yahoo Sports Australia. And you can find me on Twitter as always at redrock_bball and on Instagram at Locked On Fantasy Basketball. Let's look back over the last 2 weeks. Category leagues, points leagues, the top 20 players right across the league on a per game basis. At number one, how many of you actually heard of this bloke? But he is the number one player in category leagues over the last 2 weeks, Alize Johnson. He's played one game. He had 23 and 15 with 2 steals and shot 73%. It is safe to say that this number is going to come down, but he is a guy that has put up massive G League numbers in the past, and he's never really been able to do anything at an NBA level. It is pretty crowded in Brooklyn in that front court, but he impressed enough. He's just a name to watch, especially if we get to May, and you're for some reason still playing fantasy basketball in May, and you have Jordan sitting out, and they're resting Claxton, and Griffin's out, and Durant's out, and everyone's out, and they go, hey, for 3 games we're starting Alize Johnson. Well, you want to stream him in and see what he can do. That's really all we need to look at for that. Number 2, Big Chungus, Nikola Jokic.
Big Chungus, Big Chungus, Big Chungus, big.
Yep. Nikola Jokic is the number 2 player. What a shock that is. He's the number 1 guy over the course of the season. He's averaging over these 8 games 26, 12, and 8.5 with 1.5 steals with a true shooting of 65%, hitting 44% of his threes. Just big numbers for him as per usual. And then at number 3, the fun guy, Kawhi Leonard.
I'm a fun guy.
Now, he missed the last game with that foot soreness, but played 34 minutes in his last 6, 22, 6, and almost 5 assists. 3 steals he averaged, 54 from the field and 89 from the line, including 39% shooting from 3. He's the 8th ranked player this season, so a bit of a step up there for Kawhi, who's been pretty good in terms of games missed this year. Number 4 is Jimmy Harden, who over these last 6 games, neck injury notwithstanding, averaged 26, 8, and 12, almost 2 steals, almost a block. Unfortunately, he shot just 39%, but he was 87 from the field, from the line, sorry. And the main reason that his numbers are down and he's not up at number 2 or number 1 here is that he hit only 1.2 threes per game, and he hit those at 16%. That goes back to 37%. He's hitting 3 triples a game. Then his scoring goes up, his field goals go up, his three-pointers made go up, and his ranking goes through the roof, and he jumps up there to number 1, number 2, probably in that spot. And then at number 5 over the last 2 weeks, it is the big fella. Where's my number? There it is.
Giannis Antetokounmpo.
Giannis is averaged 27, 11, and almost 10 assists. 1 steal with 0.6 blocks, but importantly for him, and this is what it always comes down to in rankings for Yanni, is he's hitting 78% of his free throws on over 7 attempts per game during that time. He's now up to the 15th ranked overall player this year, but of course if you're punting free throws, he's jumping back up into the top 5. This next bunch of guys we're going to look at number 6. Pretty remarkable stuff to see this bloke who's played 1 game. Now, I know I do it on a per-game basis, but he played 20 minutes in this 1 game, yet he's still the 6th ranked player, Joel Embiid, 23 and 7 with 2 blocks on 73% shooting. It looks like his return is going to be coming maybe next week, which is good news. But he's been excellent this year, the 3rd ranked player overall. Number 7, Kyrie Irving. He should be back next week as well. He was out for personal reasons this week, and I believe it was because of the birth of his child, so congratulations to Kyrie. 31 points in his 4 games, 5 assists, 2 steals, 54 and 88 as his percentages. He's just been elite in terms of those numbers this year. The 9th ranked player overall for the year. So just sort of doing what he needs to do there. And Luka Doncic at number 8, averaging almost 30 points, 9 assists, 7 rebounds, 4.5 threes. That's all good. 51 from the field. He's excellent, but unfortunately 68% from the free throw line. Doncic is the 13th ranked player over the course of this season, in large part due to some inefficiency problems and a low volume of defensive stats. And that's always so far in his career been the thing that's held him back from absolute fantasy eliteness. At number 9, we're looking at the Jedi, OG Anunoby.
But what about scarves?
OG.
Balenciaga
Stop
ones.
OG. You better stop OG.
What about scarves indeed? In his 3 games since returning from COVID, 18 points, 6 boards, 2.7 steals, a block, 54% shooting, 75 from the line. He's hitting 50% of his threes there, so there's going to be a drop. But I'm interested to see if his usage can stay higher without Norman Powell there, and whether he's able to make a push and be maybe a top 40 guy. Probably not, but he's 49th already this season. So there is a possibility with elite defensive stats, and then you bring up some increase in offensive output. There is a possibility that Anunoby can do that. At number 10, we're looking at Jim Butler.
Because he's my butler.
I believe after the All-Star break, he came out as the number 1 player. That has fallen off, obviously. 23, 9, and 5 with over 2 steals, but great 55 and 89 as his percentages. Unfortunately, he's shooting 14% from 3, and unlike James Harden, you don't expect that to rise all that much for Butler. He's the 14th ranked player this year. I think that 14 to 18 range is probably the right spot for Jimmy. Let's just hope he doesn't get hurt again. And then at number 11, well, he's hurt at the moment. Let's hope it's not too serious. At number 11... let's get into that one. It is Steph Curry, another bloke who's out at the moment, and unfortunately he's going to be out for a few more games. Averaging over the last 2 weeks, 26, 4, and 6 with 1.7 steals, with 47% shooting and 93% from the line, hitting 44% of his threes. He's the 5th ranked player overall this season, continues to be really good and rewarding you if you did take him with a top 5 pick in a draft. Number 12 is Damian Lillard, 34 and 6.5. He's going to miss Friday's game due to a knee issue. He's 7th overall for the season, just really putting up some big numbers at the moment. Probably a little bit of a drop off here with CJ McCollum returning and losing some of that usage that has been so high for Lillard over this time, but still obviously excellent output. Number 13 is Karl Anthony Towns, 28, 8, and 5. The 5 assists really standing out like dog's balls there. That's fantastic to see that Chris Finch is getting him involved more in creating for others. 52 and 78 is his percentages, hitting over 3 threes per game. And then number 14, it is the thick hogsman, Tobias Harris.
I think I am a TH.
T to the H.
Yeah, TH for life.
Now, Harris is the 25th ranked player this year, but without Joel Embiid, he's really stepped it up. 22, 8, and 4.5 assists with 1.5 steals, and that's a big increase from where Toby usually is in the steals as well. 51 and 93, so absolutely elite percentages, including 48% from 3. So not only is he taking on more of an offensive load without Embiid, but he's doing that at high efficiency, which is tough to do. Then at number 15, this is, again, probably the right area for Bam. He's 19th this season. Bam Adebayo, 20 and 9 with 5 assists, 2 blocks. He did bump up some of his numbers in the games that Butler missed, and that's been a common theme for Bam this year. But his free throw shooting continues to be an absolutely massive surprise. He's also been pretty low in blocks at times, so he's hit blocked 12 shots over his last 6 games, which has really boosted him right up here. BetOnline is the fastest and easiest way to bet on all your sports action. Football might be over, but the NBA, college basketball, and the NHL are in full swing. BetOnline even covers awards, TV shows, and reality TV. Real-time updated odds and props on almost anything you can imagine. BetOnline has you covered for all the news, scores, and odds, and it's the best way to place your bets, and it's free to sign up. Head to the website, betonline.ag, or use your mobile device to sign up today. Receive your 50% welcome bonus by using our promo code LOCKEDON, and you get that on your first deposit. BetOnline are your online sportsbook experts. All right, let's go on to the next bunch of guys here. We are looking at the last of the top category players. Number 16, it is the Donovan Mitchell.
He's Don. He's good.
29 points per game over his last 7, 6 assists, 47% shooting, 88 from the line on 7 attempts. And that is something that we've just banged on about he needs to get to the line more, and we're seeing it. And this is the upside that if that happens, that's where he can be. He's finally cracked inside the top 40 for the season. The shooting is elite at the moment. Let's hope that continues. The steals are actually nice as well, putting up some really good numbers. And then his teammate,
Rudy Gobert. Rudy Gobert.
Gobert comes in at number 17, averaging 15 and 15, over 4 blocks per game. That's Miles Turner numbers there. 68 from the field and a disappointing 64 from the line on pretty high volume. Gobert is the 46th ranked player this year. He had some disappointments earlier in the year, but he is coming home pretty strong. And then at number 18, De'Aaron Fox, averaging 31 points. 6 assists, almost 2 steals, 53%. He is on a massive hot streak, but importantly for Fox, 78% from the line on almost 9 attempts. Now, normally he's like 70%, 68%, 71%. on big volume, and that really does hurt you in that area, but he's turned that around of late. Let's hope that can stick. And speaking of blokes who are shithouse from the free throw line, number 19 is Russell Westbrook. 26, 10, and 12, 2 threes, 1.6 steals. Like really, really strong counting stats. Unfortunately, 44% from the field and 68% from the free throw line. But the fact that he's able to push this high with that sort of deficiency in both percentage categories just shows you how absolutely fantastic those counting stats are. He's also hitting 34% from three. He is now the 59th ranked player over the course of the season. It's all going to come down to getting those percentages at an acceptable level, and the steals staying up is also pretty important to see there from Westbrook. And then at number 20, a bloke that's out and he's got a real chance to feast when he gets back, Terrence Ross. Only played one game in this time frame and had 31 points with 8 triples. Not to say that that's real, because it isn't, because he shot 62% from three. But he's going to get so many shot attempts with no Evan Fournier, no Aaron Gordon, and no Nikola Vucevic in Orlando. The next 4 out of the top 20 are Domantas Sabonis, Richaun Holmes, Jaylen Brown, and Chris Paul. All right, so let's move on to the top 20 players in points leagues now. At number 1, it's James Harden, averaging 59 points over the last 2 weeks. That's up on his 53.5 point average. So without Kyrie for the last couple of games, has really been able to step that up. Number 2 is Westbrook at 58 points per game. He's the 7th ranked player this year, but really, again, just churning out some massive counting stats, and we know that efficiency numbers don't count in default points leagues. Number 3 is Nikola Jokic at 57 fantasy points, which is basically exactly what he's done all year. And Giannis at 56, which is, again, basically what he's done all year. Jokic is number 1 in points leagues for the season. Giannis is number 2. Harden is number 3. At number 5, it's Luka Doncic, who's number 5 for the season. And again, just sort of performing at season-long levels. 53 for the year, 52 over these last 6 games for Luka. At number 6, it's Alize Johnson, who had 51 points in that one game that he played. The same thing goes for what I said about him earlier. Just keep an eye if he has to be forced into larger action at some point later in the season. And then number 7, Julius Randle, the double royal. 50 points per game. That's up from the 45 that he's averaging this season. He's at 40 minutes, which of course is a lot, and I'd say it would regress, but we know that his coach is insane. So maybe it won't. 24, 10, and 7.5 assists, and also 1.7 steals. Really impressive stuff there from Julius Randle. Number 8 is Gobert at 48 fantasy points. That's up from 41. We've detailed how his huge block numbers are helping him. Number 9 is Karl Anthony Towns at 47 fantasy points. I think 47 is a realistic rest of season expectation for Towns. And then at number 10 is De'Aaron Foxy Fox at 47 points. I think he's probably more of a 44 to 45 fantasy point guy for the rest of the way, but he is playing at a super high level at the moment. Number 11, we've got Kyrie Irving, 47 fantasy points. Again, that's up a little bit from where he has been this year, 45 points for the season, but not too far away. Number 12 is Nikola Vucevic.
It's Big Vucevic.
Of course, now a member of the Chicago Bulls. He averaged 24 and 12 with over 4 assists in those last 7 games for the Magic. That was 47 fantasy points, and he's averaging 47 fantasy points. I think he probably does lose 1 to 2 fantasy points per game in Chicago. Number 13 is Butler, who's at 46, which is right on his season averages. Number 14 is Bam Adebayo, who's also averaging 46, and that is up on his season averages, where he's at 42 fantasy points per game. Number 15 is Kawhi Leonard, who is, again, right on average. 45 fantasy points for the season, 45 fantasy points over the last 2 weeks. So really strong numbers there for Kawhi Leonard. At number 16, it's Domas Sabonis. 45 fantasy points for him over the last 2 weeks, averaging 17, 12, and 7 with 2 steals. And he's at 45 points for the year. So just, rolling along at a pretty steady rate. The 1.9 steals are obviously helping there. While Don Mitchell's at 45 fantasy points, so we've already detailed how he's playing at a high level. Number 18, the thick hogsman, Tobias Harris, up to 44 points. He's under 39 for the year, so this is a bit of a sell high moment for Tobias Harris. And then at number 19, we've got Jaylen Brown.
JB, you've done it again.
43 fantasy points, averaging 26, 6, and 3.5, 1.4 steals. Really high usage at the moment, really providing some offensive burst. One of those games was without Jason Tatum, and a couple were without Kemba Walker, so remember that. And then at number 20 is Damian Lillard, who's at 43 fantasy points, which is down from his 47 over the course of the season. And I think, again, there's a little bit of the McCollum factor mixed in there. The last 4 out, we've got Steph Curry, LeBron James, Zion Williamson, and Richaun Holmes. that'll do it for me today, guys. Don't forget to subscribe. Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, Spotify, and on YouTube. Guys, we are done here. Thank you so much for listening, everyone. See ya.